Okay, so this piece is made from 4 granny squares. For this bag, I made 1 black granny square and 3 pink ones. So here I am just showing how to start the black one. I started by making a magic ring. I tried to show it in a clear way, but if this isn't very helpful, then there are lots of other videos on YouTube I'd recommend looking up. And then after I finish the magic loop, I pull the tail out of the loop and I chain 3, and we are just going to begin making a granny square. So basically it's going to be clusters of double crochets, 3 double crochets, and the chain 3 counts as a double crochet. Throughout this whole granny square, the chain 3 counts as a double crochet. So I'm doing 2 double crochets, and then of course, like I said, plus we have the chain 3, so that would count as our 3 double crochets, and then I'm going to chain 3, which is going to count as our little corner. And yeah, so basically I'm just making a normal double crochet. So if you want to like skip ahead and you don't need to see this, what I'd say is what you're going to do is you're just going to start by making 4 granny squares. It's really that simple. If you want your bag to be bigger, make the squares bigger. If you want them to be smaller, then just do fewer rows on your squares. I think I'm going to tell you guys further in the video how many rows I did for these granny squares, but yeah, if you want to jump ahead, that's what you need to do. So then you can see, like I said, I'm doing a 3 double crochet cluster and then chaining 3, and yep. So you can see those little corners forming at the bottom where there are those gaps. Okay, that was my last double crochet cluster. Now I'm chaining 3, and you're going to slip stitch into the top chain of the chain 3 that you started the granny square with. Here I was just trying to close it and it got stuck for some reason. This doesn't usually happen to me, so it was strange, but I was just trying to close the center of the granny square. And then here is me just slip stitching into the top of the chain 3 from the beginning, and then I'm going to chain 3 to finish this first row and turn my work to begin the second row of the granny square. Okay, so it seems like I forgot to film myself doing the second row, but here I'm doing the third row, and you can see I'm beginning by I had my chain 3 and I'm now doing 2 double crochets in the space, remembering our chain 3 counts as a double crochet. And then I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to do 3 double crochets in that corner, then chain 3 and do 3 more double crochets in that corner. So you should have a total of 6 double crochets in each corner. And doing this is basically what allows our corners to turn. Okay, and then after the corner, I'm just chaining 1, going into the next gap and doing 3 double crochets, and then I'm going to chain 1, go into the corner, and repeat the process of what we just did of 3 double crochets, chain 3, 3 more double crochets. And here I am holding 2 strands of yarn double. This is DK just to make my black yarn Aran weight, because you can see in the top corner of the screen, those are my pink squares, and I made them using pink Aran weight yarn. Okay, so I just finished a corner there, so I chain 1 and then I'm going to do another cluster. So basically you're just going to repeat this process for every single row until you get your granny squares the size that you want them to be. And remember, you're going to end this row by slip stitching into the top of the chain 3 from the beginning of the row. Okay, so here I am just continuing to build the granny square using the exact same technique, instructions of like 3 clusters, the amount of chains in the corners and like in between the clusters on the side as we've been doing before. And yeah, that's what we're doing now, just building out the length of the granny squares, or rather the size. So I will tell you guys how many rows I did for each of these granny squares, but again, it is customizable. I ended up doing a total of 6 rows for the granny square. So here I'm just on my last row, so I'm going to do my final slip stitch into the 3rd chain from the beginning of the row, and then I'm going to chain 1 and cut my yarn essentially. So that is how you make these granny squares. So for this bag you're going to need a total of 4. So once you have 4, then we can move on to the construction of the bag. Okay, so here I was just showing the 4 squares and how they're all folded in half, and this is going to be the size and shape of the bag. So now we have to attach all these squares together essentially and add a strap, and I'm going to show you how to do that next. Okay, so I started by attaching 2 pink squares, and I'm going to use my black yarn to attach. And for this bag I want the single crochet seam to be visible, so here I'm just putting my hook into the corner of both squares. I'm pulling my black yarn through, and I'm going to tie a knot, chain 1 and single crochet once in the corner, and then single crochet in the stitches or the double crochets that are aligned. So that's what I'm doing here. You can see I'm going into the corresponding ones on each square. So just repeating that, and then in each of the spaces I'm going to do 1 single crochet and then continue single crocheting in the corresponding double crochets. And then when I get to the end of this row, I am going to do 2 single crochets in the final corner across, and then I'm going to cut my yarn. So yes, that's what we're doing for this part. Okay, so here you can see I'm just coming to the end of my row. Again, we're just single crocheting in the corresponding double crochet. This is our last cluster before the chain 3 corner, in which we are going to do 2 single crochets as I already said, and then chain 1 and cut our yarn. And these 2 squares are essentially connected, so there's 1, there's 2, then we're chaining and cutting the yarn. Here I'm just trying to kind of give an idea of how all the squares are going to connect after attaching these 2. So yeah, that's all I'm doing here. And then that would be the back of the bag, because I want, as you can see, that black single crochet to be visible on the front, so that's the front. So those single crochets are like an accent for our bag. Okay, and then here I am showing the next 2 squares that we are going to be attaching in the exact same way with single crochets. And then this is what it looks like when they are attached. And here I've got 2 ends, and what I ended up doing is I just tied them together and cut them, but you can weave them in properly as well. Okay, so here finally I've just got to attach the black square down that way where I was pointing, and then we can see that the pink squares are up, wrong side up. This is what the bag looks like so far when all the squares are attached, and here I am just folding it so that you guys can see basically what else we have to attach next. So yep, it's just gonna be like that. And then this is the back side of the bag, so we have to attach down that way using single crochets, then those 2 sides using single crochets, and that side using single crochets. Just use the same method that you've been using to attach the sides before. This is what it looks like when all the squares of that back side are fully attached. So I just chained 1 and cut my yarn. And then that is basically attaching all the squares. So now we're just going to do a bit of a single crochet border on that little flap and make the strap and sew it on, and then the bag will be done. Okay, so you're literally just gonna single crochet in each of the double crochets and one single crochet in the spaces like you've been doing, and then when you get to that top corner for each row you're going to do 3 single crochets in it. And this is just me at the end of my first single crochet row. So there's my final single crochet. It's getting a bit stuck, and then you chain 1 and you turn your work, and then you're just going to do 1 single crochet in every single stitch. The only difference is that when you get to that very top where you had your 3 single crochets in that top gap for your first row, you're going to go in the middle of those 3 single crochets, so the one that's in the middle, and you're going to do 3 single crochets in it again. So it's going to be a little bit less clear. You're going to have to look very carefully when you're at the top for that middle single crochet of the 3 and do 3 in it, so increase, and this allows us to turn. So yeah, essentially you're just going to do as many of these single crochet rows as you like until this flap or portion of the bag is as long as you would like it to be. Okay, so here I have done all my single crochet rows for this flap in the manner that I described, and here I believe I was showing how many rows I did. I think it was 5, and then I'm just chaining 1 and cutting the yarn, and then yeah, that flap is done. So it just covers the bag a little bit more than if we left it the normal length, but like I said, customizable. Moving on to the strap, I chained 161, and we are going to work this strap across the length of the strap. So this is essentially how long you want your strap to be. So if you want it longer, then you can make this chain longer, and if you want it shorter, you can make it shorter. So here I'm just doing single crochets, or I've done single crochets across, back and forth, to get a width of strap that I'm happy with. And then I'm just going to chain 1, and the strap will be done and ready for connecting. Okay, so here I'm just showing the strap on the side, and I chose to sew it on using a needle and thread, but I would actually recommend using yarn and a yarn needle. I just lost my yarn needle, so just sew it on in whatever way you find easiest, you find comfortable. It doesn't have to be super exact, and here I was just showing myself kind of sewing it on with needle and thread. If you kind of want to get an idea of what I was doing, I was just going around and around, and since I was using thread and a needle, I went back and forth 3 times. But I think if you were using yarn and a yarn needle, you might only have to do it once or twice, since that is definitely much stronger. Okay, and that's basically it. You just have to attach both straps. And one thing I want to mention is I think this bag would be much more durable if you lined it. I'm actually thinking about doing that because, I don't know, I think that would make it much nicer. So yeah, I don't show how to do that here, but I know there's lots of videos on YouTube on how to line crochet bags. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely recommend it. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, subscribe, leave any comments below, any videos you want to see in the future, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!